Sure.
Okay, so welcome all. This is our 81st PC open discussion, and we are still continuing on what's new. We left last week on a very great topic, which is super interesting. I did some research and we'll talk about it today, and then continue what else is new. So where do you register? You go to this link. These links get updated after this meeting most of the time, or late by tomorrow. In case I get late, that will be by tomorrow evening. And that's it. Okay, so where we left last time is on isolated events. I did went back, watched Microsoft video about it, and then watched some other videos about it. Did some research on Microsoft Docs, and it's super interesting the way it works. So what we discussed last week is just the theory of it is that a isolated event is just the event that we used to or Microsoft used to create. But the only difference with the isolated event that it makes sure that all the subscriber that are part that are subscribing to that event will be called even if there is an error in one of the subscriber. So it will not stop the execution. Now the beauty of it is, or the problem that is trying to solve, that you don't stop the execution, especially of processes where user can't access the system. And right now where Microsoft have added it is on company open trigger of Business Central. So the situations were like a user is trying to open a company and you have written some code which is failing, and for that reason user can't access the environment. So with isolated event, if there is an error, as we saw last week with a small example that we tried to create, it will not show you an error message and it will just continue on other subscribers if that exists. So at this moment, there is only one Microsoft event, which is an isolated event. And the only change, not from the subscription part or the subscriber part, which we do, but on the, the app, which is defining this, is you'll have to add an optional Boolean to be true. So all your existing event, if you have some of the events in your extension, they will work as it is. You don't have to change anything. But in future, if you have to make one of those as isolated event, you'll have to add one more Boolean here, which is by default false as true, to make that isolated. So let's understand what I was able to figure out. And then if I have the link somewhere saved, I'll share it with you. Let's understand first how the whole subscriber logic works, as in how the whole event subscription logic works in NAB or in Business Central now, which is something like this. There is an event defined by one of the app, either Microsoft app, either ISV app, either your pertinent extension. When that event is triggered, whatever the actions are, like the code reached to that point, like there is an event on code unit 80 or in one of the table. When the code execution reaches to that point, that method, I'll call it, is called, and because it's an event, it looks for all the subscriber that exists for that event. Once it finds it, it invokes each subscriber one by one. And there are only two cases. That is, subscriber either returned or executed the code successfully, or there is an error message. So if everything went well, then it goes back, finds the next subscriber and execute that code. Next subscriber, execute that code. And then once all the subscribers code is executed, it comes back to the original flow of the code. But let's assume if the second subscriber have an error message written for certain situation, then what happens is it rolls back and terminate the whole operations. Now think of a situation like we were trying to simulate last week, where you have written something like this, which does not allow user to get into the company, as in it's written on company open, and stops the user to get inside the company because of that one subscriber that you have written. So to solve that, Microsoft introduced isolated event, and that just tweaks how this whole execution used to work before isolated event. So how that looks now is something like this. The event is called, as it used to be called earlier. It fetches all the subscriber that it have. Then the system or the platform checks what type of event it is. If it's an isolated event, it kind of begins the transaction. So like from this point, it'll start the process of that transaction. And then it invokes that subscriber code. So now you are within a scope of a transaction that's happening. Now let's talk about that your subscriber have an error message. In that case, if it is an isolated event, it just rolls back this transaction which was begun here. It doesn't stop the, it just rolls back the transaction of that subscriber where you are right now, and goes back and finds the next subscriber, follows the same route till all the subscribers are called. Now the other situation is if this subscriber have no error and there are 5 subscribers. So if there is no error and the event is isolated, this transaction which was started here does a commit at this point. So each subscriber transaction is committed as soon as the execution of that subscriber is completed. In this scenario, the commit happens after all subscribers have been called, at the end of it. In the middle of it, if there is an error message, it rolls back the whole transaction. But in case of isolated events, it will commit the transaction after each subscriber is called. Does that make sense? Or otherwise, I'll find that article if I have somewhere open. We can see that. Oh, yeah, I have it. So let me pull it here and let's see the example that Microsoft is providing here. And if required, let me know. We can type it also. That's not a problem. So what's happening here? This is an example of isolated event. I'll put the link in chat if somebody wants to read it further. Here in chat. All right. So somebody added a code unit which is supposed to be subscribing to the event, specifically the company one, the company open one. What it is trying to do, it's just checking is the customer table empty. If it is empty, then it sends an error message. Now, if there is an error message, which means the subscriber should fail at this point if it is a normal event that's being called. But then it calls a my isolated event, which is this app isolated event, which is defined here. If you see, the second parameter is set to true, which defines this event as isolated. As soon as this event is called, the cursor moves here, and then it checks for all the subscriber that this event have. As there can be one or more, there is one subscriber defined here, and then there is one more. So there are 2 subscriber defined in this case. The definition of subscriber, as I said earlier, remains same. You don't have to change anything in your code. That remains as it is. What these 2 subscribers are trying to do, the first one is trying to increase the counter, which is passed as a reference here. And then it deletes all the customer. And then it errors out as fail, which means this subscriber will fail. And the counter will increase by 1. This code will not be reachable because there is an error message. So it will go back. the second subscriber is trying to increase just a counter by 1. So now what happens, as soon as this event or the code execution reaches to this point, this subscriber is called. It does a delete all, but then it errors out. And remember this picture, when it errors out or there is an error, it just does the commit, which means this transaction is not executed, will be rolled back upon error. And then it calls this subscriber, which increases the counter by 1. Then here it checks if counter is not equal to 2, which it is not. Both subscribers should have incremented the counter. And then it checks that is the customer empty or not. So in the normal scenario, if this would have been written, there is an error and it would have never called this subscriber because this would have generated the error message. But in this particular case, because it's an isolated event, it will also call this subscriber, which will just increase the counter. Does that make sense, or should we try to copy this and debug this?
No, it makes sense, I guess.
Right?
Yeah.
If anybody want to play around with it, I have put the link in chat. The diagram which I had in the slide is also from here. This is the new call stack or how it executes. And right now it's only trying to do one, as in it's only implemented in one area, which is on the company open trigger. But as the article says, and as just you can also create events in your code, you will be able to create new events if required and then utilize them. Okay, let me minimize this, go back to the slide deck. Okay. Now, the next thing that we are going to talk about is specifically about customers or partners who have customers on SaaS. Now, if you have SaaS customers, you would notice this, that this becomes a huge task and a problem for most of the administrator, that which user gets what permission when they sign in. And it's even tough for partners because they also help administrator to set up permission for every user. And then anytime they add a new user, because they can't add it from the client now in SaaS, it kind of fetches it based on the license that is attached to that user on the AAD, I guess, if I'm not wrong. And based on their license, it automatically adds those users. So if you don't know it, let me open my SaaS environment and let me go to users. You can't just do a new on SaaS. You'll have to go ahead and fetch the users from your Microsoft 365. This will automatically fetch all the users which are there and have the license attached for business end and will make them available here. Now the problem that was that it will automatically add all the users here which are there, and then the administrator had to go and tweak their permissions per user when they come in. So with this new enhancement that Microsoft have built in, the administrator with help of partner can define what permissions and what user groups will be assigned to the user when they log into the system for the first time. And they have clubbed it, as you can see, in different categories. Like, is that person who have a license, like most of the partners have license or delegated admin? What kind of permission you want for that user if your partner is trying to sign in for the first time? Same for partners who are there to kind of support them. Administrators, if they have a premium plan, if they have a team member license, if they have essential license, if you have purchased the embedded license and device license and so on and so forth. So what they just have to do is they need to navigate to something called as license configuration in this environment. And they'll see this page, which lists all different type of licenses which are available for Business Central. They need to pick based on their, the license that they have purchased for their users. Like they cannot mix and match premium and essential. So either they'll be using premium or essential. So they say that, oh, any user who is type of Dynamics 365 Business Central Essential license attached to their user ID. There are some templates that Microsoft have defined, like they will get full access user group, export Excel action user group, and then these are the permissions that Microsoft have defined for them, which some of them are from these user groups. In the template, what Microsoft have done, that they will be assigned for the company where they sign in for the first time. So if somebody gets into the Kronos USA company for the first time, the permission will only be assigned for that company. But as an administrator, they can come here, they can enable this to customize this permission, and they can do any kind of tweaking, like they can remove everything which is here if they don't like it, and then start assigning new, or they can just leave these, and they might have an ISV or the PTE which requires certain kind of permission. They can just define that here, and the company where it goes, if they need a company for that matter. Or also they can just define the permission set that need to be assigned to them. So whenever a new user which have the Dynamics 365 Business Central Essential license attached to their Microsoft 365 user, as soon as that user signs in, he will now get these defined in his permission set. As an administrator, you don't have to open everything, or as a partner, you don't want to waste that much time if they have, let's say, 50 plus users or things like that, and do it manually. So you should start doing this when you are, helping your administrator to kind of set up a new environment on SaaS. Either they are implementing or upgrading to SaaS. This is where that will help, that before your administrator goes to users page and click on that icon to fetch users from Microsoft 365, if they set this up, as soon as they kind of sign in, their permission will be defined the way you have defined it into the license configuration window. Okay. The next up is for developer, and I don't know how many of you are building apps with workspaces or building multiple apps. Is there anyone who is working for a customer or working for an ISV who have multiple apps in their environment as custom app, not Microsoft apps? What's it? Like, does your solution have two apps? Or does everybody does one app per customer?
Yeah, we have multiple apps, customized apps.
No, customer wise is okay. But do you have two apps for one customer or more than one app per customer?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So this is a specific scenario for developers where they are working in a multiple apps which are dependent to each other somehow. Now, if you haven't known this, what happens in VS Code in general is VS Code like this comes up with a workspace if you want to utilize that. Now, if you look at it right now, what's in there is there are three apps, three different apps, app 1, app 2, and app 3. And how system is able to kind of differentiate these apps is because in the folder where it is, which is this, there is this file called template. So let me Or let me just directly open that file. If that makes sense. It's a simple text file, but it's of type. Okay, it's already open, so it will not let me open that. So let me close this. Oh, completely get closed. Okay. So what happens is, in a normal situation, if you create a new project for from VS Code, it considers one folder as one project. For VS Code, a folder that you are in will be considered as one folder as one app. And it's unable to kind of segregate between that, oh, this structure that I have opened may have multiple apps. And that's where the workspace comes into picture. So if you define a workspace, the workspace is just structurally explains that this folder have multiple folders inside it, which means it have multiple apps inside it. And then using workspace, you are able to kind of develop multiple apps in the same environment. You don't have to kind of switch back and close a folder and open again. So if you see here, it just lists all the folders that are available in this workspace, which is the app 1, app 2, app 3, and then other folders, which are just placeholders. So in this scenario, what you have to do is, once you have the workspace, you just need to say open workspace from file, open that workspace file, and you'll see that the folders which were listed in that workspace file, which is like this, and open it. Yes. You will only see the folders visible which were defined in this app 1, app 2, app 3, scripts, GitHub, DevOps. And based on this, the other benefit is the system is able to differentiate that this scope of this folder ends here and this app.json belongs to this folder, which is different from this app.json. So it is able to differentiate between 2 different or 3 different apps for that matter. Now, typically what happens if you are working on a multi-app model where there are dependencies between apps, right? If just for example, I don't have a scenario right now, but just for the example, if your app 2 depends on app 1 because it's taking some references from app 1, and then your app 3 is dependent on app 1 and app 2, then you will define the dependency. That's the first part on each app that you want to build. But to publish and install these apps, you'll have to go in sequential order. You will first publish and install app 1 because it's required for app 2 and app 3. Then you go ahead and publish app 2 because it's required for app 3. And then you go ahead and install app 3. And you can't miss this order because if you try to install app 3, it'll error out and say, I need app 1, which I can't find in the environment. And same with the app 2 because it can't find app 1. So developers who are working on an environment where there are multiple apps that they are building which are dependent to each other, they can just now use this new command, which is publish full dependency tree for active project. So if you are on app 3, which for some reason depends on app 1 and app 2, now you can just use this new command, which is full dependency tree for active project. Active means the folder which is open right now is considered as active in a workspace mode inside VS Code. So right now, because I'm inside app 3, this is considered as active project. What this will do? This will automatically identify or read the dependencies of this app. And if those dependencies are part of this workspace, they will be installed in that order or published in that order. And then at the end, your app 3 will be published. So you don't have to manually build those apps and then go to PowerShell and install them in a defined order. You can just use this publish full dependency tree, and it'll publish that. Just remember that you should not have dependencies, as in you can have dependencies, but those you need to manually install if they are not part of this workspace. Like if I am taking a dependencies on an ISV which is built by, let's say, Vijay, and which is available on app source, I need to make sure that that app is available in the environment before I start executing this command, because this will only read whatever is in the scope of this workspace. Questions? Thoughts? Or maybe nobody have worked on it in that way.
Okay, is it only for publishing the app, or when we do this GitHub AL go, like committing it to the GitHub? Also, when we like commit the third app, the changes for first and second app will also be committed automatically.
You're talking about the source control?
Yes, GitHub Actions, which Microsoft has given, right, in this new version.
Oh, that's different. That's kind of about the building of the app, right? As in, that's running your code and then giving you the output as an app. You might have to do some tweakings on it, and we did ran through it before the release, I guess. I don't know when we ran it, but I have that set up on my GitHub. Maybe next time we can go through that and understand how it executes on a multi-app model. Because if you see the Microsoft template, because that's very interesting. If you see the Microsoft template, which is published by Freddy, it actually in that workspace, what Freddy have is a base folder, a app folder, and a test folder, which eventually means 3 apps in that workspace. And the test app have automatic dependency on the base app. Sorry, on the actual app, so that it can run the test. That's the whole idea of that. So let me see if I find that. Yeah, so this is what I forked from Freddy, and this is the public repo if you want to see that in my GitHub. This is a clone of what Freddy have published on his Azure DevOps. It's just a cloned copy of it. If you see, there is this app, okay, which is the actual app, which have the code and all. Then there is this base app, which Freddy is trying to use as kind of a linkage between it, which is for those situations which is not recommended to modifying the base app. And then there is there is a test app, which should have, and let's see, which should have a dependency with the app. So if you see here, it has dependency to the main app. This is the main app. And then these are the indirect dependency for the test runner to make sure the tests are running. But this test app has a dependency with the template app, which is actually this app, the template app. So the test app already has a dependency, and when we tried this template, or not a template like this, but maybe build a project on something like this, it did publish both of the things, if I remember it correctly. But Balaji, if you want, maybe I can prepare a kind of a simulation or a demo next week, and we all can go through the ALGit command line.
Okay.
Just to see how multi-app work. I'm pretty sure it will work. And that all is not written over there. That actually is written in this. I'm not that good with this, but it's actually written in one of these YAML file. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, current YAML, which is for the current version. So it does have everything, and it does run through that. So the whole point of this YAML file is to make sure and read and get the version and set up the Dockers and things like that, and then publish your code and then get the app out of that Docker container.
Okay.
Right? So I'm pretty much sure that this will work. There will be a code which will be able to kind of understand the dependencies and show you. But what I'll do is I'll build an example, I guess, next week, and then we can run it through. I don't know, did Microsoft change after we tested it last time in these meetings, or they did not? I'm not sure. So I'll have to check that.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this one? So the command is publish full dependency tree for active projects. And then when we will be discussing next week about this algo command on GitHub, we'll also see a dependency tree. I'll have that dependency tree in the VS Code. Okay. Moving to the next item, which is the demo tool and demo data for manufacturing scenarios. Now, this was missing for a while, especially after Business Central 15 and all, where there was very limited set of data that was available in the Docker containers, or when you create a demo database in Business Central SaaS, or the database that you receive from Microsoft in the on-prem environment. It was very limited to kind of test it out, but the whole idea of building this new extension in Business Central is to kind of, for customers who would like to explore the manufacturing scenarios, test it out, and that creates some set of data, some master data, and some transactional data into your Business Central environment as soon as you kind of start that. So for that, what Microsoft have done is added and included a new extension in on-prem or SaaS environment. Just FYI, it is not available for worldwide version as of today, but it is available for otherwise most of the countries, I guess. But I'm pretty sure it's not available for worldwide version as of today. Okay, so when you go into your, if you're on Dockers, you can check in your, here there should be a Microsoft console. Where they moved it. Okay. It's called Contoso Coffee demo. So here it is, demo data set for US, and then this is kind of generic. And these two extensions are installed by default. And the cool part is that the code for these is extensible. So if a partner would like to kind of build their own kind of data, demo data around it, the code is extensible, and you can just take a dependency on this app and then build a PDE against it, which have the scenarios that you think were missing or are missing from Microsoft code. So you can extend it, you can define some new data if required. And as per the article that I read from Microsoft, they're trying to extend this to other areas in the system, having it as a separate extension, not making it part of the base Microsoft app, because that just adds up into the problems. Plus, then it'll be hard for customers to remove that. With this, you can, maybe here. What you can do is, once your customer have tested it, he seems okay with it. If they want, they can just delete the whole extension or uninstall the whole extension, and it doesn't cause any harm to your base app or your system apps because it's just in the separate app. But here is that code set, it seems, which is generating all. And as per Microsoft, they have events available. So this is kind of, they are inserting the BOM component into the system. And they said that they have events. So let me see, maybe insert rec have some event. No, not this one. Okay. Which is without even how you can extend it. So let me see. Okay, subscriber, what is this? They said that there are events, and I took their word. I didn't actually look at it. I think there should be some events. I did look at it by subscribing to it. Okay, I might have to go a little bit deep into it to find out do they have events or not, because the whole point of this is to also make it extensible so that the partners can extend the scenario if they need it. So let's quickly test it out. Maybe we'll have to check from the code part that do they did they add the events or not. Okay, let's not waste time here. Let's go into our SaaS environment, which is this. And then there is a page that you need to look for, which is also coffee demo data. Now, because this company is already created and this has been ran, I guess, by me, this button is disabled because there is already some data. But I think I should have company. Let me see. Not, I guess that will be a problem. Huh, yeah, that's not a company. It will require some predefined setup data. So now here also you should have a new option, company sample data, which includes everything. But then I need to have the production with setup data only, and let's do a demo company. Okay, thanks. I'm finished. So what happens is when you create, and the use case of this would be that if your customer would like to include or start manufacturing their business solution, what you'll do is you will start a separate company for them, and then you will run this Contoso coffee demo data extension, and then just create the demo data, which will help them to kind of simulate their situations and test out what they need. Is it available in the product, or do they need any mod from you while they're testing it? Based on reading on Microsoft Docs, it seems that they are going to extend it to other areas where the data is still missing. So keep an eye on it. And if you are on-prem, you will have to manually install these extensions because they don't, I guess, come by default on the environment. But for SaaS, they will be available by default. And even on Docker, they kind of get auto-published, which then generate that data, which can be utilized to simulate the manufacturing scenarios and all. So we'll wait for this, but that's okay. We can move ahead. So as you can see, it asks you for the starting year, what kind of company you have, what is the manufacturing location that you have from your existing locations, which posting setup you would like to use, what are the price factor and rounding precision. And once you click kind of create demo data, it goes through that code which you just saw in VS Code and start creating that data which is written inside that extension, so that you can start utilizing that data for either your development or for all your scenarios that you need. Anyone have used it till now? I haven't. As in, I did click on that button, but didn't use that more or less. It's still building because I requested a company with some data. Okay, so we'll not wait for that as much as we should, but okay. Next is Microsoft is retiring the old app that is available in App Store. And they are coming up with new desktop app, which you can install today from your Windows App Store from a device. This app's kind of, there are two apps available, one for Business Central SaaS and one for Business Central on-prem. It gives you the full web client experience. People who like to use the app rather than using the browser, they can use it. As of now, it does have all the features, but there are some which are not available at this moment, if I read the comments correctly. But most of the features are available on the app. You just need to make sure that you go to your store. Once you get into your store, you just have to search for Dynamics 365 Business Central. It'll populate two apps once you search for it. Central. You will see that there are two apps. One is for on-premise and one for online. If you're using online version, I think you also get a notification on your browser to download the app, if I'm not wrong. Let me cancel this out. Somewhere here, there should, yeah, here. As you can see here, it says app available, install Business Central BC20 demo. So if you are on Business Central SaaS, you get this notification like for any other website, that it identifies that you don't have an app installed on your system. And if you are someone who prefers to use the app rather than the browser, then if they are on SaaS, they can just click on that. It'll just download it and open it for you like this. You can then pin it on your taskbar, like you can see here. It is full-fledged, like you can have multiple window if you are, you want to have different windows and you're comfortable working like this, or if you're comfortable with browser, that's still an option. But the old app is retiring, as far as I read, and the new app will replace it. I haven't seen customer who are a huge fan of apps, so I don't know how much that will benefit or not. But
Well,
yeah,
not
that's
not
an
the not the desktop app, but it's just the smartphone application that is being requested. The SaaS works fine. It's on-prem with the smartphone application that is causing problems.
oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I tried to troubleshoot it, see what if the firewall is causing problems. They don't have any firewall, but it just doesn't connect to the service tier.
The on-prem one?
Yeah, the SaaS
Huh?
works like a charm, really. No problem there.
Oh, this one works fine. The new one.
I have never tried the desktop version. Not a big fan of it. None of my customers actually are using it. They just go through the browser, really.
Okay. And I'm also and explore easy to use. Okay. Let's see. I'll have to test it out. I haven't done that. You can install these apps on your only on your Windows phone, or it's available.
Um, this one is actually for Windows.
Yeah, I don't know. Did they release a new app on as in like in India? Most of the users are Android users. Did they release anything for Android as in an updated version of the app
Yeah,
for
there is
Android?
actually both versions for Android and iOS.
Okay. So which one you are using where it was, troubling you?
The smartphone, not the desktop version for Android.
Oh, for Android. Okay.
I
So
thought
there is only one for Android right now, what I can see on my screen, which is this, right?
it's the one. Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
this
NAV.
is it is for
I think Android 9 or something.
both
Nine.
cloud and on premises. Okay, so it is supposed to work on both cloud and on premises. I don't
That's
know. Does it require a certificate for on-prem customers?
Well, you could definitely specify on the application that no certificate is required. It's not like hard coded. You could definitely disable it.
No, but the problem is because it's on your mobile device, which may or may not be connected to the same network where the
Oh,
server
no,
is.
it is. Yeah, I know. Right, good point
So
actually. But it's definitely connected to the same network.
Yeah, because I don't remember. I do remember the app scenario which I fixed in the NAV world, where there used to be an app which was not working, as in there was only on premise back then. And maybe you should give it a try, as in there are ways to create a self-signed certificate, right? Just for testing
Mhm.
cases, and
Yeah.
that will allow you to kind of connect to your business central environment. And let me see if I can find that article somehow. But yeah, certificate scenario is something that you should make sure that it works, right? Uh, Dynamics now. Yeah, because I had a situation back then. I do remember in NAB World, and this is, I guess, the article that I was talking about, that either your service tier should be on a public IP, okay, and then you kind of download this utility to self-sign generate your certificate.
Hang on a second. Public? No, it doesn't have to be. This is a private network. I'm not
So
going
you
to pop.
don't want users to access the client when they go out of office.
It's more like for warehousing, if you will, activities like picking and everything. That's why they needed the smartphone application. They use it on a PDA, but not accessing from the outside. With the smartphone, they could definitely use desktops.
Okay. Even in any of those cases, you need to generate a new license. New certificate.
Uh-huh.
This is just for testing scenarios. This explains you how you install it on your service tier. Once you install that license or certificate on your service tier, then you need to change the authentication on your user card, which is that username password,
Uh-huh.
because your Android device will surely not support Windows authentication, right?
Yeah.
Which also means you'll have to change your service to
Yeah.
point to the certificate and the credential type. Once that all works and you have updated your service and all, then you need to make sure that your website that's hosted again on a server, right, for the web client, also have that license attached or certificate attached, so that it understand that it need to validate it. Once you are done
That's,
with it,
you have to attach it to the web service, the web server.
yes, web server, not web server, yeah, web server. Once this
Uh,
binding is done, then you need to install the certificate on your mobile, like I'm doing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once I install the certificate, then my app, this is webline, but on my not tablet, this is my phone, right?
This is an
Where
AV application,
this
actually.
is NAV. That's what I was saying, like 2016, right? Back then. So I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure the same method will work, but yeah, I can give it a try. I
Yeah,
haven't seen
definitely
any
give it
that
a
interesting.
shot.
But this
Yeah.
is
Okay. Well, thank
interesting that it is still hard. I thought they would have made it simpler.
you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. But that's good to know. I'll have a look on it, I guess. But yeah, this app for Windows phones as well as for tablet devices, if you have any, and you can then use this app on, can use you can install it from here or you can just get it from there. Okay. So we have the demo company ready. We'll go back and look for our contours. So coffee company and see what data it's created. For some reason, I don't know who else have tried it, but you can't actually create a company on the Docker. As in, you try it with this option and kind of fails. Maybe you need to change some parameters over there. But once you are here, you can change these parameters. These are predefined based on the setup, but you can define these setups as per your need. Once you are done, you have chosen everything. You can just create the demo data. If whatever the masters are required are available, you start creating that data that will help you to simulate situations or code around it. Just creating work centers, machine centers, routings, bombs, and all for those items. so that you can then start playing with it. Don't do it on a production company for sure. Surely create a new company, as I did, as we were talking about it, and then run this coffee demo data and start creating the data that's required for those scenarios. So while this is happening, we'll move forward and see, keep an eye on it. Okay, there is surely some changes that Microsoft have done. If you are a Teams fan, you would have heard about it. It has been talked very widely in different sessions from Microsoft. They are paying a great attention to kind of having kind of possibility to work on Business Central in the Microsoft space. So like in Teams, you can do so many things together, and Teams become one of the kind of common area where Business Central is focusing more other than the Power Platform. So if you are not into Teams, you should kind of start looking at it. Teams App Store have an app which you can install for Business Central. So you can just go and search for a app for Business Central specifically. It looks something like this, which let you do so many things. Like you can tag people on things, you can share a contact, which goes with the shareable link. And and there are so many things that you would have heard from directions and all, where two people can work within teams, inside teams, on a Business Central page, like on things where it needs collaboration from multiple people. They don't need to visit someone in the same office, or maybe they are working from home. They all can work at the same time if that window is available inside Teams, and that all is possible with this app that is available inside your Teams. I know it seems a little bit odd from a perspective of Dynamics Nav developers, because we always lived in that zone of being into a closed product, and everything was inside an AV. Whatever you want to customize, you'll have to code for it. But now you need to kind of look this product in a different way, from opportunities with Power Apps, with Teams integration, with Dataverse, CRM integrations and all. It is not an AV anymore. It's an open space which talks to different technologies. You can have your control item written in JavaScript, which works great with Business Central. You can have automations, or sorry, approvals from Power Automate. You can have automations written on Power Apps, which executes on different events when they happen inside Business Central. And technically speaking, you don't have to write a single line of code for these activities. That's all in the Microsoft space, works seamlessly between these products. I kind of missed the train on Power Apps, or the Power Platform, but I'm trying to kind of learn that gap that I have, because there are situations where if customers have expert, not developers but power gurus more or less, they tell you things which are very simple to do from Power Platform when you share an estimate with them, to be very frank, because it's all possible without a single line of code, and it interacts greatly with this. So if you are looking where you should explore your knowledge other than Nav, I would surely say pay attention or start exploring Dataverse options with Business Central. For sure, Power Apps, or the whole Power Engine more or less, are the two key areas where you should pay attention. And technology wise, it will require two things to learn. One would be APIs, and the other would be the new OAuth authentication. That will be the only two areas which you need to technically focus on to kind of expand your knowledge into this power space. And then Teams is everything built in. Uh, Microsoft had talked about to have possibility to customize what kind of is visible when you share a page on Teams. So like if I go to this page and this is done, so we'll see if you share this on Teams, it does show you a preview of what page you are doing, and it kind of draws a card around it. And what Microsoft is trying to do is trying to enhance this so that the partners can customize this, and this is not visible because I'm using a different environment. But let me see if I can access Teams somehow. Okay. So it generates a preview when you kind of try to paste a link into your Teams window. And that preview dialog box that appears when you try to paste something in future will have possibilities for partners to even modify that if needed for that matter. Okay. So let me see, when you paste it here, it should automatically detect it, and because I'm opening it for first time, I guess. Okay. So it converts it into this card, where you, before opening it on Business Center, you can kind of see the preview within the Teams app if it is installed on your environment. So that is something that Microsoft is trying to extend for partners so that they can change this whole preview dialog that they see here. But yeah, there are good possibilities where you kind of extend it and use it within your customer environment or your environment. So right now in this app, that's what they said, that it kind of converts it to a banner automatically when you paste a link, which is does not go as a simple text, more or less. It goes as a preview window over there when you paste a link of Business Central. And they are only available right now for Business Central Online. So it's kind of still a limitation for on-prem customers, more or less. Okay, so we are nearly at our end of our time, so we'll cover rest in the next time, I guess. Any questions, any thoughts? We start seeing this.
Saurabh, you told that, mentioning about the Power Apps. So if we need to integrate between Power Apps and Business Central, should we need to have a separate subscription for the Power Apps, or the Power Apps which comes with the Office 365? Only Office 365 subscription is enough. Like if the whole organization, they want to use Power Apps for approval or something like that with the Business Central.
So with Business Central, there is a part of the license which includes some part of Power Apps. I exactly don't know how much it covers, but I'm pretty sure it does cover the basic part. So there are two kind of Power Apps that you'll see on the Power App window. One are the basic one and one are the premium ones. So I'm pretty sure the license that's available when you purchase Business Central will have access to the basic apps which are available on your Power App section. So right now, if I go into this kind of more or less demo environment, I'll have access to all free apps which are available. And I guess one of the Business Central app is a free app in that matter, the connector more or less. It all works on that connector thing, right? So if you look at, these are my some demo things that I was doing. So the cool part is what I was saying about the data verse is to bring data into Power Apps. That's where the data verse comes into picture. That when you have to kind of bring any data from your Business Central, you can utilize the data verse. And the cool part of exposing a data to data verse is super easy because anything that you expose as an API in your Business Central, any page, if you create an API, it automatically comes and become available in your Dataverse. So in your extension, if you define a new page as an API, which have certain fields from certain tables, and you publish that extension. That extension will be visible here, and you don't have to manually build any kind of integration to bring data
Oh,
into the Power Apps platform. So that's one
okay.
cool thing about the about the Power Apps, that it kind of ties directly with Dataverse, and then the Dataverse directly ties with your APIs. So that's where it becomes important.
Fine.
Hmm, my internet is slow, but yeah, there's surely something to kind of explore someday. I'm still learning it whenever I'm getting some time. But yeah, it makes complete sense. There are people like Avinav have done a Power App. We were talking about it, I guess, 2 3 weeks ago. So yes, you see opportunities on customization that your customer needs, and then utilize these, Microsoft technologies to kind of build that solution rather than just coding inside an extension. Okay. Anything else? Anyone?
One more question.
So
You spoke about this license permission page, which is shown that. Okay, so that is based on the the license, whatever the license is there. If it is a premium user, so that will be assigning the permissions which are defined in that under that card page. So,
Yes.
but the usual way of how defining the license, the permissions, that is, it can be due two different users can have a same license thing, but permissions can be different. Could be different, right? So, which, as usual, the permissions which are defined for the user level will take the priority, correct?
Yes, as in that also sets it at the user level. So what happens is, as you would know, if you have worked on the central while assigning permissions, there are some minimum set of permission that you need to assign to every user, irrespective of whatever department they come in. Like right now, I guess what most of the partners are using, and what also Microsoft is recommending, is D365 Basic, right? Which is needed for
Mhm.
every user, irrespective of whatever they are going to work after that, or whatever other permission you are going to assign them. So that minimum set that need to be assigned to that user, you can define from that, so that then you don't have to manually go and assign those whenever somebody logs in. Yes, for two people you will have different permission, and you can always do that on your user's card. But anything that you define on license configuration will automatically be assigned on the same page. So if you uh, set up the license configuration and I'm the next user who comes in, whatever you have defined, they will already be part of my permission sets and my permissions and my user group. After that, you as an administrator can surely add or even remove, for that matter. It doesn't change anything. It just makes it simple to do repetitive thing automatically.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Anyone else?
yes, Saurav,
Yes, sir.
have you Christian, do you have any idea why the RDLC report, especially sales invoice, is no longer available in Business Center latest version?
204 or
Yeah,
something like that, right?
204 or 205, I think.
They removed it. Not this
Uh,
version. They removed it in 19.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So the way Microsoft suggested in Business Central 19 is, if you still need it, go to 18, export those reports from the base app, and save as in 50,000, because Microsoft is not going to continue them. That was their statement. We discussed about it, I guess, last year when they removed it.
Actually, the challenge is in the Word report, the number of copies is not supported.
Ah,
The number
so
of copy pages.
Vijay, what I'm saying is, let's go to BC18. You can still create a Docker or download the DVD for BC18, right? Just download BC18 DVD, extract the base app, and download those, copy those files into 50,000 range and plug them in. As in, they are supported, they will be running. It doesn't cause any problem to use them. But just because Microsoft is removing them, that doesn't mean you can't use them. You can just surely save it in 50,000 and use them.
Is the RDLC ID available?
Yes, everything will be available in the base app. So like if you see, the RDLC files for all the report will be available in the base app. You just need to be on the right version. Like for the reports that Vijay is saying, he need to have either the DVD or the Docker for Business Central 18, because that's what the last time when those reports are available.
Okay. No.
Okay, so ultimately we have to download
Put it
and
on.
make it.
Yeah. Kind of copy them from here, paste it on your extension, change the object ID, and you are good from there.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Okay, that's good. Anything else, anyone? Sam, your thing resolved?
I think it's working fine, really. I was working the same time you were explaining the isolated events, and it seems to be working. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, thank you. Truly appreciate these sessions.
Welcome. Not a problem. So yeah, we'll see next week. If there is something left on what's new, we'll just cover that, wrap that up next week. And then I'm pretty sure me and some other people are working on those file things that we talked about. I'm working on the SharePoint piece. Somebody who's working on Azure file storage, I guess. Sandeep sir was working on file storage. I was working on SharePoint. I made some progress. Maybe once we settle this down, we'll talk about the SharePoint connector, as in the file upload and download capabilities with SharePoint. Okay,
So
then.
in the next step, we are discussing on this.
Sorry, no, next week we'll continue this. There are quite a few items which are left. We'll cover if something is important, and then next to next week we'll start surely talk about that file management concepts.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, anyone?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Enjoy
thank
your
you.
weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Thank you, Saurabh. Bye.
Thanks, man.